The First and Second Continental Congress. On September 5th, 1774, 13 colonies, all except for Georgia, came together and met to act upon the Intolerable Act that was passed in Britain. They met in secret because they didn't want Great Britain to know that they were united. There was 56 delegates, which were those up in those delegates were George Washington, Sam Adams, John Hancock, Patrick Henry, and Benjamin Franklin, and more. Well, they had three main objectives. First objective, to compose a statement of colonial rights. The second objective was to identify British Parliament violation of those rights. And the third last but not least, to provide a plan that would convince Britain to restore those rights. The members agreed to no longer trade with Britain until they changed the act, which was the Intolerable Act, until King George III agreed upon what they came together and discussed. And they also, as they was meeting, they no longer saw themselves as separate colonies or separate states, but they saw themselves as America. As Patrick Henry stated in one of his comments, he said, I am not a Virginian, but I am an American." And so that shows that they no longer saw each other as that anymore. Well, they met because due to the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was something that the people in Britain, they sold tea, and so Britain started trade with the United States and with other countries in America. So the people was afraid that they would raise taxes, which they did, and so they didn't want to pay those taxes on tea. So one day there was 3 ships coming in on Boston Harbor, and there was the Sons of Liberties, which dressed up as Native Americans, and they got the people together, and all the people came together, and they dumped the tea, 364 to be exact, 364 crates of tea over to the Boston Harbor. Well, in order for them to be punished, in order for British to punish them, they passed the Intolerable Act, which is also called as a Conservative Act as well. Well, it took away their self-government, and it took away a lot of other stuff, and they still had to pay taxes at that. Well, as they was together in the First Continental Congress, they got together. They made this petition telling him that he could either telling King George III that he needs to change this or else. So they said that if King George III, they agreed upon this, if King George III did not accept and he did not do what they asked or demanded, then they will get together and they will meet up again in the summer of 1775. Well, at all ends, King George III did not accept, and he revoked it. And so they met again, as they said, of May 5th, 1775, and this is known as the Second Continental Congress. Well, they met again as agreed on, like I said, but this was after the battles of Lexington and Concord, which was on April 19th of 1775. Well, when they came, there was mixed emotions. Everyone had mixed emotions. Some people wanted to go to war. Some people wanted just to make it like somewhat of a peace treaty. Some people just like didn't want the violence. So, and others just was like, come on, they're ready for war. And they had people behind them ready for war too. But then they also had people saying, well, we don't want war. We want to be peaceful about this thing. So they wanted to decide not to make any decisions or major doings that will cause a major war. But they also felt the need to be prepared. And being prepared is protecting themselves just in case something were to happen. So they established a Continental Army, which George Washington was commander-in-chief on June 1775. And the same day of Battle of Bunker Hill, they also passed the Declaration of Clauses of taking up arms. They wanted King George III to know they wanted peace. So John Dixon wrote the Olive Branch Petition. And when he wrote it, he put in suggestions on how to solve the problem, and King George refused to read it. In his mind, he saw it as King George in his mind. He saw it as a illegal document, and this was the start of the Revolution War. So this started the Revolution War, and the Second Continental Congress met through all of the Revolution War. They came together and they made decisions on when and where they would attack Britain and how would they protect themselves. And at this time, the government did not, well, the Continental Congress not have much funds to fund the war. So what they did was they tried to borrow money or like get people to voluntarily give in. And so after King George III officially called the colonies in rebellion, after Thomas Paine Common Sense was circulated and read, the Patriots realized there was no way to solve the problems peacefully. They decided to declare independence, and they drafted the Declaration of Independence, which was adopted at ratification on July 4, 1776, which my friend T will tell you more about. Also, the main problem the Continental Congress had was how to finance the cost of the war. This took a lot of time, and they tried different ways to support their armies. Soon the problems of state rights came, because though they wanted to be united as one country, each colony wanted to remain independent and make its own laws. The debate over how the colonies could remain united but keep their individual rights continued. In July 1776, the Articles of Confederation were presented to the Congress as a way to define both the central government and the state government.
I'm going to correct Trey on that. It was May the 10th, 1775 that the Second Continental Congress met. And so now I'm going to talk about the Declaration of Independence, which was wrote by Thomas Jefferson with the help of Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. It was wrote for the 13 colonies to George III. They wanted their independence from Britain, and that was basically it. They were writing for their independence from Britain, and it signed off on July the 4th, 1776, and that's how we got the 4th of July, or Independence Day. So after that, we had the Articles of Confederation, and the Articles of Confederation was the first constitution of the U.S., and on November 15, 1777, that's when they came up with it. But it was really ratified on March the 1st, 1781. And it really left the power to the state governments, and it was like 13 countries in one big area, and they were doing their own thing, and they didn't have like federal laws or the United States, and so soon all the taxes for all the 13 colonies was at an all-time high. And this is when they started to learn that the Articles of Confederation was going to turn out to be a bad thing, because a farmer from Massachusetts named Daniel Shea was behind on his taxes, and he lost his farm. So for him to lose his farm, he really got mad, and he decided he was going to march to Boston, Massachusetts to get on. Well, he marched to Boston, Massachusetts with his friends, or his little clique, or whatever you want to call it, and they decided that they were going to go against the 13 colonies with the British people. Well, somehow George Washington found out about it, and when George Washington found out about it, he went to Boston, Massachusetts, where Daniel Shea was at, and he kind of told him, if either you're gonna go home or you're gonna get killed. And anybody in their right mind, he went home. So after that, they kind of felt like the Articles of Confederation was poop, and we need to build us a new constitution, something that is gonna help with taxes and not make our people want to go against us. So that's when they came up with the Constitution, and Church, I will tell you a little bit more about that.
Well, it was 11 years after the Declaration of Independence and 4 years after the American victory in the Revolutionary War. A small group of delegates Carnegie Yale in Philadelphia, and they created a new charter for governing the young nation. The result was a long-lasting, most successful, most invaluable, and most immediate constitution man have ever known. The United States Constitution has secured a unprecedented degree of human freedom, upholding the rules of law, securing the blessings of liberty, and providing the framework for people of America to build a great, prosperous, and just nation unlike any other in the world. George Washington thought of it as a little short of a miracle that the delegates could agree on the Constitution. Americans had stumbled on this road before. The United States has established an early constitution in 1781, the Articles of Confederation which T just told you guys about, which failed. Under the Articles, each state governed itself through elected representatives, and the state representatives in turn elected a weak central government, one so feeble that it was unworkable. The Legion of States, hastily crafted during wartime, had to replace with a real government. The challenge was the virgin stable institution arrangements that would reconcile majority rules and minority rights. That is, reflect the consent of the governed but avoid majority trainees. The new Constitution would need to secure the rights promised in the Declaration of Independence and do so through a Republican form of government. The founder responded with a written constitution that created a strong government of limited powers with the novel institution of the separation of powers and federalism. From May 25th to September 17, 1787, delegates from 12 states met in what is now known the Independence Hall in Philadelphia to form a more perfect union, which is in our Constitution, and establish a government that would secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. The Constitutional Convention was one of the most remarkable bodies that ever assembled. Not only was there leaders in the fight for independence such as Roger Sherman and John Dixon, and leading thinkers just coming into prominence such as Mr. Morris, James Wilson, and even the Federalist Papers authors James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, but also legendary figures such as Benjamin Franklin and George Washington, who was chosen as president of the conventions. Every state was represented except for Rhode Island, which feared a strong national government and refused to send delegates. Adams declared the 3.5-month convention the greatest single effort of national deliberation that the world has ever seen. Jefferson described it as an assembly of the demigods. From the Committee of Details and the Committee of Style, Mr. Morris produced a final draft that the delegates revived. On the conventional's last day, September 17, 1787, now celebrated a constitutional day. Benjamin Franklin, 81 years old, patriotic of the group, praised the Constitution as possible the best ever written. He observed of the sun painted on the back of George Washington's chair. Now I have the happiness that Benjamin Franklin quoted. Now that I have the happiness to know that it is a rising and not a setting sun. The 39 delegates who remained there through the 4 months, representing 12 states, signed the Constitution and sent it to the Congress of Confederate. And the convention officially adjourned on September 28th. Congress sent the Constitution to the state, which in turn referred to the ratification convention chosen by the people in accordance with Article 5 of the Constitution. The new government was approved with the ratification of the 9th state, New Hampshire, on June 21st, 1786. But that's not all. And now that we look at our Bills of Rights, which was finally ratified 1791, following ratification by the state of Virginia, the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, known collectively as the Bills of Rights, became the laws of the land. In September 1789, the first Congress of the United States approved 12 amendments to the U.S. Constitution and sent them to states for ratification. The amendment was designed to protect the basic rights of the United citizens, guaranteeing the freedom of speech, press, assembly, and exercise of religion, the right to fair legal procedures, and to bear arms, and that powers not delegated to the federal government would be reserved for the states and the people. And that is the ratification of the Constitution of the United States and other bills of rights. Thank you.